My name's Runa, and I have a condition called Trichotillomania. I have been sat for the last probably 30 minutes, halting myself from recording because it's a difficult subject, and it's difficult for me, and the main thing that's spurring me to record these are I'm on quite a few websites for and support groups for Trichotillomania, and I keep seeing other people who have questions about their condition, or they have kids and they don't know how to go about doing it because most people don't know what Trichotillomania is, or how to spell it for that matter. I just kind of wing it. What is Trichotillomania, or Trich? We'll just call it Trich. Trich is a compulsion to pull out hair, and it can be, most people go for the hair on their head. I have my lovely bald patch there, but some people pull from their eyebrows or eyelashes, some people pull from down there, and some people, mainly people with beards, pull from their beards. It's usually brought on by stress or anxiety. It's also considered self-harm and an addiction, but there's not really much knowledge as to why it happens, and everyone's different. Mine is, it's brought on by a lot. I started pulling when I was about 5 years old. I know I was young and at the start of school. It's a different, whole other story with a lot of bad shit that happens, namely child abuse. I wasn't in a good position, but I did have a few family members, particularly my grandparents, who are so great to me, and I owe them a lot. And it was with me for a lot of my childhood. My patches were never as bad as this though, because I also used to nail bite quite a lot, and that hasn't come back, thankfully. My nails have grown out, fortunately. The main problem with the nail biting was that either I wouldn't have fingernails, which is gross, or my thumbs in particular, that was my main one, would get really infected. Don't do that. It's not good. I struggled with it a lot, pulling my eyebrows, my eyebrows grow really thin now, which is why I put makeup on my eyebrows every day. Even if I don't have other makeup on, I will always have my eyebrows done, unless it's really hot like it was the other day, in which case I don't bother because there's no point. I was pull free for 10 years, so I went 10 years without pulling from my head or my eyebrows or my eyelashes, apart from in the places you don't want hair on your eyebrows. And then I also was going through puberty at the time, which is when a lot of people start pulling, but that was for me when I stopped. I think I changed schools around that time, and my therapy was really great. I'd also around the time found out that I'd got autism. I was diagnosed with autism when I was 14. So a lot of stuff in my life seemed to just fall into place. I mean, it wasn't great, but it wasn't as bad. Then recently I did a Britney, is the best way I can describe it. started pulling, and one day at work, nothing happened to even trigger it. I was just in that moment, and I just kept pulling. And my sister helped me shave it off. And I also joined a couple of groups, one on Facebook for people who struggle with trichotillomania in the UK, and one on Reddit as well, which is kind of a global thing. And it's good to see that you're not alone. I don't post that often, but it's good to be like, there are other people who are going through this thing, and it helps so much. I even used to work with a girl who had a similar condition, and she didn't know anything about it until I was talking about mine. But I've got a lot of support from my friends, my boyfriend, and my grandparents especially, and my sister, and it's helped quite a bit. But there are ways you can counter it. Like I said, I was pull-free for 10 years. That was 10 whole years where I wasn't. Maybe if I got a little stressed, I would tweezer at my leg hairs, but I was going to shave it anyway, so I count that as pull-free because it's fancy. But there are a couple of things you can do, and there's a couple of things I did to help with your condition and my condition. There's my main one, especially for nail biting, was origami. I have a whole chain, like an actual chain of origami beds in my room, and when I was in community college, every single room in that school now has an origami crane hidden somewhere. Some of them I even managed to get in those ugly panels in the ceiling, so they're just kind of hidden in the ceiling. There's one in the grand piano in the music room, and a lot in light fixtures, and some in a computer. There's stress balls. I had, during high school, I had a couche ball, which is a ball with like elastic strings that you pull on. Mine looked like Winnie the Pooh. And also fidget toys. I know for kids in particular, like, some schools don't allow fidget toys because of the spinners from a few years back, but like fidget cubes and things like that, like you can just have in your pocket, are so great. But when you can't, and when you have heavy pull sessions, I find that an ice pack on your patch helps just soothe the pain a bit. These are great. You can get them super cheap off Amazon, and they're so helpful. And also they're very helpful in the summer for keeping you cool. Also, don't forget to put cream on your head when it's hot. Don't want a burnt scalp. Not fun. There's also, obviously, what I've done is cutting and shaving your hair. Now, this is a bit of a drastic change. I wouldn't recommend it for children or like younger people. Teenagers, maybe, but it has to be something. It's not something you take lightly. This is a big decision. So if a child says, yes, I want to do this, I've thought it through and I want to shave my hair, then by all means. But as a child in school, kids are... Am I going to get demonetized for saying this? Kids are... Goes without saying, I was bullied quite a bit. And having bald patches and haircut short doesn't help the situation. But yeah, kids can be dicks. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it for children. So if you have a child who is going through this, only do it in like extreme cases. And it doesn't, like, this isn't a perfect solution. I will still, if I get really big compulsions, I will attack it with a pair of tweezers. And I'm not ashamed to say that. I am ashamed to say that, but I'm also not ashamed to say that. There's also a couple of things you can do. Exercise is recommended, so when you feel like pulling, if you can, just run or maybe punch something. Preferably nothing that can soothe you, but yeah, whatever helps. And honest and open conversations. I read a post on Reddit about a woman who wasn't sure whether or not to tell her boyfriend whether or not about her trichotillomania and her pulling. And they'd been dating the same amount of time as me and my boyfriend, and she wasn't sure, she didn't want to, but the best thing to do is just talk. Have an honest and open conversation, and you will cry. I have a note right under my webcam saying don't cry, talking about this right now. But it's trying to keep that a secret and trying to hide something like this. It's hard. So best thing to do is just sit down with someone, and the person you want to, whether it's your partner or family or a therapist or even just someone on a support group, and just have an honest and open conversation. If you're telling someone like your partner, I'd recommend just be like, okay, so it's called this, and I'm doing this to counter it, and maybe have some information out on your phone or printed out for them to read, just so you can be like, okay, so this is what's happening and this is what I can do about it. And if there's nothing you're doing about it, don't be ashamed of that. It takes a lot to ask for help. The only reason I got help in the first place is because I was an actual child. I don't remember much about the therapy from when I was little, mainly because I was 5 and you don't have hard conversations with the child in the room, or at least rarely. But yes, talking about it does help, and it takes such a weight off your shoulders, and there's no shame in it. There's no shame in pulling. There's no shame in not pulling. It's not you. It's just something you do. Like, I am not my condition. I am not my trichotillomania. I am not my autism. I am not my anxiety. I'm Runa, and don't let it define you. It's just something you have. You can still have a job, and you can still have a life, and I promised myself I wasn't going to cry, because I'm an ugly crier. But you can do it, and it's difficult, and it's so painful to talk about something like this. Even talking to my webcam in my bedroom is difficult, but you can overcome it. I felt so much shame when I started pulling again. I've been pull free for 10 years. I managed 10 years, and I felt so much shame, and you shouldn't be ashamed of getting rid of that streak, because it just means you get to start a new one, and you beat it. You beat 10 years by maybe 15 or 20. You try your hardest, and if you manage to break it and just have a Britney moment. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just... it's something you can overcome. You can do it. I'm maybe managing to do it, but it helps, even if you don't talk with those groups, even if you don't post about your condition, it's good to see that there are other people there. And if you're on like a Facebook group with other people of it, maybe talk to them, have someone who you can talk with about the condition, even if it's just to rant. It helps. It helps so much. And don't be ashamed to talk about it. Don't be ashamed to say, yes, I have this. And don't be ashamed to cry. Unless you're an ugly crier like me. But I'm thinking of doing another one of these to go over shaving methods and also wigs, because I do wear lace front wigs sometimes. I have one here. This is my favourite. So I'll probably go over using wigs and shaving methods next time if people would like that. Sorry this got emotional, and sorry about the background noise. I live on a main road. Yeah, this was a lot. If you're from the UK and suffer from trichotillomania, or know someone who does, please check out the NHS website. It's got a ton of information and also can link you to some other helpful pages and charities.